This has been a good night. The last storyteller up for the evening, taking it home, is going to be Jennifer Clark. Come on up, Jennifer.
When my husband and I got married 11 years ago, I moved into his house that he had lived in with other guys for 4 years. And it was okay because we were going to move to more of like a family home in a couple years. So when the 2 years came up, it was going to be another couple years. And then another couple years. And fast forward to 10 years in that bachelor pad. And we actually did move last year into a wonderful family home for us and our 3 children, and I could not be more thankful. It honestly felt like a miracle that I thought would never happen. And the house is a dream, except for the one day it was a nightmare. And that day seemed like a normal day. It was a summer afternoon, and I put my 2-year-old son down for a nap. And he snuggled up in his bunk bed on the bottom row, and he was leaning against the wall. Just snuggled up, as he always does. So then I left, and it seemed like he was going to take a nap, because he wasn't crying. But then a few minutes later, he was crying. And I thought, crying, toddlers, and nap do go together. But why was he not crying and then he was? So my mom's spidey sense went off and I raced up the stairs. I flung open the door and I said, Gilbert, what is going on? And he said, look! And he pointed to the wall and there was like a swarm of something against the wall, and it was the amount of like when you leave something and it rots on the counter and there's like that much. And then I was like, what? And then he said, and look! And I looked, and the light that has a, like the fan in it was covered with whatever these things were. And as I was trying to figure out what was going on, he said, and they're stinging me. So then I just reached into the room where he was standing beside his bed, grabbed him, and pulled him out and shut the door behind us. And then I said, Gilbert, what is going on? And he said, I kick-a-did the door, and all of a sudden, when I kicked the wall, they all came flying out. And I looked at his forehead, and there were 3 tiny stings. And when I had reached in, I got a sting. And when I figured out he was okay, I called my dad and said, what is going on here? And he said, yellow jackets can nest inside your wall, and they eat the drywall, but they don't eat the paint. So when he kick-a-did it did go through the wall, and these angry yellow jackets flew up. So at that point, he said, get a towel underneath the door and call any exterminator that you can think of so that someone can come tonight. And it was already 2 p.m., so who can come tonight? Turns out there was one guy who could, and he came at 9 o'clock that night, took one look in the room. It was swarming in there by that point, and he said, I'm gonna need my bee suit. So he got in full bee gear, walked in the room, and sprayed everything. And that little hole in the wall, he kicked open more, reached in, grabbed the hornet's nest, sprayed that also. We closed the door, and the few that had come out were like, ooh. And we were like, okay, I think he got it good. So then we waited 3 days. We were not allowed to go in for 3 days while they all died off. And when we opened the door to see what was happening in there, after 3 days, it was just like carnage. It was just like all the dead yellow jackets were everywhere, and the lights and the walls and the floors, and we had to sweep it up and clean everything. And my kids had been displaced from their room for a week, and we all didn't know how it was going to go, having them go back in that room filled with angry yellow jackets, but now is okay. So when I put my son to bed that night, and he snuggled in, and he didn't have nightmares, and he hasn't had traumatic times since then, he's not very scared of bugs or bees, I said, wow, this home, even on its very worst day, is still a miracle for us.